70 is not just a number. It's a reality no one prepares you for. Have you ever pictured yourself at 70? Maybe you imagine sitting on a porch, sipping tea, watching sunsets with wisdom in your eyes. That's what we like to think a peaceful twilight of life. But here's the truth most people won't tell you. Getting old doesn't feel like a gentle fade out. It often feels like being pushed to the sidelines while the world continues to spin without you. Today, we're diving into 10 harsh truths of being a 70-year-old man. These aren't tales from a movie. They are lived realities. They sting, they provoke, but they also reveal something deeper, a kind of truth you can only see once youth stops pretending to protect you. Let's begin with the first truth, one that doesn't just hurt, but disorients you entirely. 1. You become invisible, even though you're still alive. One morning you walk into a room and no one looks up, not out of rudeness, but because somehow you're no longer part of the scene. You've become background noise in a world that used to applaud you. You used to get phone calls from friends, colleagues, your children. Now the phone rings and it's a robocall reminding you about your Medicare options. You try to share your thoughts in a group conversation and they nod politely, then continue talking like you never spoke. The waitress calls you sir with a tone that feels more like a formality than respect. You're their flesh, bones, thoughts, memories, but it's like you're fading behind an invisible curtain no one else can see. It's a cruel magic trick. At 70 you haven't disappeared, but society acts like you have. It's not hatred, it's oblivion, and it's silent. There's no ceremony for becoming invisible, no warning sign. You go from essential to optional to overlooked, and the worst part is no one even notices except you. But here's the twist. Invisibility, while painful, can be freedom if you choose to see it that way. No one watches your every move. No one expects you to perform or prove anything anymore. You can observe, become the quiet sage, rather than the forgotten relic. Listen deeper, speak with intention, and finally stop playing roles you never wanted. Becoming invisible may not be fair, but it can be powerful if you stop trying to be seen and start choosing to see. And yet, even when you accept that the world no longer watches you, another betrayal awaits, not from the outside, but from within your own mind. 2. Your memory starts to betray you. Gently but ruthlessly. You open the fridge, stare inside, and forget what you came for. A friend tells you about a shared story, and you smile even though you can't recall being there. You know this is happening, but somehow it still surprises you every time. At 70, the mind behaves like a quiet rebel. It doesn't launch a coup, but leaves little landmines. You walk into a room and forget why. You meet someone familiar, but their name escapes you. Dates blur. Facts slip away. The betrayal is subtle, almost polite, like a thief who bows before stealing your most precious memories. It's terrifying, not because forgetting a birthday is tragic, but because you begin to question if you can trust yourself. If your mind goes, what do you have left? What is identity without memory? It's like watching the foundation of your house crack beneath you while you smile at the neighbors. But here's the twist. Your memory doesn't just vanish, it rearranges. The trivial fades, and what's essential emotion, meaning the shape of moments, lingers like perfume. You may forget the year, but never how someone made you feel. You may confuse faces, but still recognize love, hurt, pride, shame. And more surprisingly, your forgetfulness invites compassion. You become more forgiving of others and yourself because you now know how fragile recall truly is. So you adapt, write notes, laugh at your own lapses, let others help, and in doing so, let go of the myth of total control. Your memory may falter, but your presence can grow stronger if you stop obsessing over what's lost and start honoring what still remains. But even the strength of presence can't always protect you from the echo chamber of your past. And the one thing that never forgets: regret. 3. Regret doesn't arrive with youth, but with the absence of time to fix things. When you're young, regret is just background noise, a whisper, a quiet discomfort you promise to deal with later. But at 70, regret becomes louder, not because the mistakes are bigger, but because time no longer offers you a second chance. You sit alone and recall the argument with your brother that was never resolved, the trip you promised your wife but never took, the words you should have said to your children when they needed your voice most. Back then you told yourself, "I'll do it next year." Now the years have run out. That's the harsh twist of aging. Time doesn't just pass. It disappears, along with the illusion that there's always more time to heal, to speak, to make things right. Regret doesn't stab or shout. It lingers like fog, wrapping around your chest at night when you're trying to sleep. It arrives with a photograph, a familiar song, a quiet moment, and suddenly you're drowning in things you cannot undo. But here's what most don't realize. Regret isn't punishment. It's a compass. The pain of it points toward what still matters, the people who need your voice, the apology still waiting, the project you can still begin. You can't fix everything, but you can fix something. So you pick up the phone, write the letter, say the thing even if your voice shakes. Because at 70, every small act of courage becomes a form of redemption, not for the world, but for yourself. But sometimes it's not regret that haunts you. It's the daily reminder that your body, the very vehicle of your freedom, is now something you have to negotiate with every morning. 4. Your body becomes a negotiation, not a tool. Once upon a time, your body was an instrument you used to run, to build, to protect, to love. Now it feels more like an unpredictable partner in a fragile truce. You don't wake up anymore. You rise cautiously, one leg at a time. Your ankles are stiff, your knees creak, your lower back hums with a dull ache like a warning light that never turns off. Simple acts become measured decisions. Stairs, you consider them twice. Getting up too fast, you might fall. Carrying groceries, better not overdo it again. There's a quiet humiliation in needing help to cut your toenails, or realizing you haven't sprinted in decades. But here's where the twist lives. Your body, while weaker, is finally honest. It no longer lets you ignore it. It demands rest, balance, and attention. It forces you to slow down, and in doing so, gifts you a new rhythm. You begin to savor things. A walk becomes a meditation, a bath a ritual, eating not just fuel but connection. You start listening to your body, not as a machine to be pushed, but as an old friend whispering, "Let's take it slow today." Yes, it's frustrating. Yes, it's limiting, but it's also wise. And the more you listen, the more you live fully in the moment, not in spite of your aging body, but because of it. Still, even as you adjust to your physical limitations, there's a deeper truth creeping in, one not about how the world sees you or how your body treats you, but about your place in the very structure of life itself. And it starts with this piercing realization. 5. You are no longer the center of anyone's universe. And that's a heavy silence. There was a time when your name was the first word a child spoke in the morning, when your arrival lit up a room, when people counted on you for guidance, for safety, for strength. But now you're no longer the sun in anyone's sky, just a distant star, still burning but barely noticed. Your children have their own lives, careers, families, schedules too packed to include you often. Grandchildren love you, but don't revolve around you. They text faster than you can think and move in a world you barely recognize. And here's the part that stings most. It's not personal. No one meant to push you aside, life just moved on. There's a strange kind of silence in not being needed. It echoes not like a shout, but like an empty chair at the dinner table. You go from "Dad, help me with this," to "We've got it handled," from "You're the strongest man I know," to "You should sit this one out." Yet here's the twist. The loss of centrality creates space to witness rather than control, to support without steering, to love without needing to be the hero. It's humbling, yes, but it's also liberating. You're no longer the main character in everyone's life, but that doesn't mean your story is over. It means your role is evolving, from center to foundation, from driver's seat to wise passenger who sees the road more clearly. The universe never revolved around you, but at 70, you finally stop pretending it did and find peace in simply being present. Still, in the quiet of not being needed, another question creeps in. Have I really made a difference? That's where we're going next. 6. The world moves on without you, and it doesn't look back. You step outside and everything feels faster. Cars seem more aggressive. Music sounds unfamiliar. The neighborhood isn't what it used to be. New stores, new faces, new slang. You watch the news and realize you no longer understand half the headlines. People laugh at jokes you don't get. Technology leaves you behind every single year. Then it hits you. The world isn't just changing. It's moving on without you. And it doesn't even flinch. There's no announcement, no permission asked. It simply shifts culturally, socially, digitally, and you're on the shore watching a ship with your name sail off into the horizon. You feel it when someone glances at their phone while you share a story, when you mention a song and no one recognizes it, when your relevance no longer translates in this new world. It's a silent exile, not out of malice, but out of momentum. Here's the twist. You're not obsolete. You're timeless, but only if you stop trying to catch up and start grounding yourself in what never changes. Wisdom doesn't trend, character doesn't expire, presence doesn't need Wi-Fi. You might not understand TikTok, but you understand patience. You may not code, but you comprehend silence. You might not be plugged in, but your life has been deeply lived. The world may move on, but it leaves echoes. If you listen carefully, you'll find what's essential always comes full circle. You may no longer be part of the algorithm, but you can still be the anchor. Yet even this role of wise elder offers limited comfort when faced with the next reality. You begin to lose more than time or relevance. You begin to lose people. 7. You start losing more people than you can emotionally bury. At 70, funerals become more frequent than weddings. The phone rings and you pause because at this age, good news rarely calls first. Friends you laughed with, argued with, grew up with, they start disappearing. Not all at once, but steadily. A quiet erosion of the world you once belonged to. You stop saying, "See you soon," and begin saying, "If we're still around." You visit familiar places and feel ghosts in every corner. The people who once knew your unfiltered story are no longer there to finish your sentences. There's a particular grief in this, not just the loss of individuals, but the loss of shared memory, context, being known without explanation. You carry entire relationships in your heart now because the people who carried them with you are gone, and it never gets easier. The more people you lose, the heavier your silence becomes. You smile, nod, pretend you're okay, but inside you're burying another piece of yourself each time. But here's the twist. Loss, while cruel, carves room for tenderness. You learn to hold others tighter, not out of fear, but reverence. You say, "I love you," faster, forgive quicker, pause longer in the presence of those still here. And oddly enough, you begin to understand death not just as an end, but as a mirror, showing how brief, fragile, beautiful it all is. At 70 you grieve, but you also cherish in ways younger hearts cannot yet comprehend. Because when you've seen how quickly someone can vanish, You stop wasting time pretending anything is guaranteed. Still, even amid this emotional reckoning, there's one reality that cuts deeper than loss. The quiet dismantling of your identity, not by trauma, but by irrelevance. 8. You're not who you used to be, and no one asks who you've become. At some point, you stop being the man who built the company, the soldier who served, or the father who worked 3 jobs. You simply become the old man in the chair. People see the gray hair, slower steps, cautious hands, and assume that's all there is. They don't ask what you've lived through, what you think about at night, what dreams still flicker when no one's watching. You are not who you used to be, but here's the tragedy. No one asks who you've become. You evolve in silence. You've seen too much, lost too much, loved too deeply to stay unchanged. But society has no interest in your current self. It only remembers your former role, or worse, overlooks you completely. They speak about your past like it's the only part that mattered. They say, "He was," instead of, "He is." And slowly, you start questioning too. Am I still a man if no one treats me like one? Do I still matter if I'm no longer needed? What does legacy mean when no one's listening? Here's the twist. There is still a man in there, one who's grown softer in the right places, sharper in others. One who has traded ambition for perspective, speed for clarity, ego for peace. The real tragedy isn't that people don't ask, it's that you stop telling. You stop sharing your truth because you assume no one will listen. But what if they would? At 70, you've earned the right to rewrite your narrative, not as a relic, but as a whole human still unfolding. Speak your new voice. Don't be reduced to nostalgia. You are still becoming, even now. Still, this inner revival is often hidden behind something even more painful, the quiet shame of dependence. 9. You need help, and that feels like defeat. You spent your life holding things together, carrying groceries in one hand, your children in the other, making decisions, fixing problems, standing tall, even when the weight was unbearable. But now you can't open a jar without wincing. You hesitate before asking someone to help you down the stairs. You wait a little longer before calling the nurse button because deep down it feels like losing. Needing help isn't new, but admitting it at 70 feels like surrendering a part of your manhood. You used to be the protector, the provider, the one who said, "Don't worry, I've got it." Now you say, "Can you help me with this?" And something inside you resists every single time. It's not pride, not really its identity. Because when your hands shake or your knees buckle or your vision blurs, it's not just your body that feels weak. It's your sense of self. You begin to wonder, if I can't do the things that once defined me, who am I now? Here's the twist. Asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. It takes far more strength to say, "I can't do this alone," than to pretend you can. There's a quiet grace in letting others step in, not to pity you, but to honor the decades you spent. Being strong for them, accepting help opens a doorway to connection. It reminds your children that you are still human, not an icon carved in granite, but a living, breathing man who still feels, still hopes, still trusts. At 70, needing help doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've reached the point in life where mutual care becomes the highest form of dignity. Still, even with all the support, all the humility, there's one more reality that towers over them all: the truth you've been quietly preparing for your entire life, whether you knew it or not. It's time we speak about the harshest reality of all. 10. No one can live these final years for you. At 70, the road ahead isn't infinite, and you know it. You don't need a doctor to tell you. Your body tells you. Your mornings tell you. The calendar doesn't lie. And this truth lands like quiet thunder. No matter how many people love, You visit you or care for you. No one can live this part of life for you. They can hold your hand, comfort you, sit beside you through the storms, but they can't walk in your shoes. They can't wake up in your body, feel your aches, face your memories, or wrestle your questions. These final miles are yours alone, Dotted. Sounds bleak, but here's the twist. Because it's yours alone, it can be yours completely. For the first time in a long time, you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to compete. You don't have to chase. You get to be exactly who you are, moment to moment. This is not the end of your story. It's the rawest, most honest chapter, the one where everything that doesn't matter falls away, and what's left is just you, the man you've become, the values you held, the love you gave, the peace you now choose. This isn't about dying. It's about living the final years with intention, even if it means walking slowly, even if it means walking alone. Because solitude isn't the same as loneliness, and endings aren't the same as erasure. You're still here, still breathing, still able to leave a mark with your presence, your words, your quiet strength. So the final truth isn't about death, it's about ownership. No one can live these years for you, but you still get to decide how they're lived. 70 is a mirror, not a conclusion. These 10 realities aren't meant to scare you. They're not just about aging, they're about truth. And truth, when faced with courage, becomes wisdom. At 70, you may feel invisible, but you can choose to be present. You may forget things, but you can still remember who you are. You may not be the center of anyone's universe, but you still carry your own gravity. You may not control time, but you can decide how deeply you live what's left of it. So here's the question. If you knew your time was short, how would you live differently today? Because aging isn't a defeat. It's an invitation to return to yourself. And maybe, just maybe, that's where the real freedom begins.